You know that weird little trance where your body is technically doing life, but your brain is hosting an entire private cinema festival? You're brushing your teeth, walking to the fridge, opening the same three apps for the 47th time, and somewhere inside, a full simulation starts running. Future conversations, fake arguments, imaginary victories. A version of you with discipline, cheekbones, and a suspiciously clean apartment. Then reality taps the glass. The kettle screams. Your foot hits the laundry basket. A notification coughs up something stupid. And suddenly the whole inner movie collapses. Now you're standing there, phone in hand, not even enjoying it, just realizing your attention got kidnapped by a glowing rectangle with commitment issues. That shift is not mysterious. It's a reward system trying to recalibrate after living too long in artificial weather. Because when the outside world goes quiet, the brain does not simply power down like a polite little lamp. It opens the default mode room. That is where self-reference, memory, fantasy, identity, regret, planning, and emotional leftovers start bumping into each other like people trapped in an elevator. And when high stimulation rewards are always nearby, the system learns something very annoying. Effort feels expensive. Waiting feels offensive. Boredom feels like a personal attack. So baseline reality loses resonance. The nervous system starts treating low-effort dopamine as the main course, while actual life becomes the dry side salad nobody asked for. This is how maladaptive absorption begins. Not because you are broken, because the easiest reward source kept winning elections inside your skull. And there are layers to it. Some people use hyperstimulation as a little emotional snack. A scroll here, a video there, a quick hit before doing the thing they already swore they were about to do. Some people build an entire indoor climate with it. They are not just avoiding work. They are avoiding the flat, itchy silence that appears when the stimulation stops. And then there are people whose minds start generating full emotional ecosystems because the outside environment feels too slow, dull, demanding, or unpredictable. The phone becomes an exit door. The fantasy becomes a place they actually live. The snack becomes a habitat. That is the ugly magic of cheap dopamine. It gives the brain a controlled room where nothing asks for patience, friction, or delayed reward. No waiting. No awkward beginning. No boring middle. Just instant entry. Instant color. Instant tiny reward confetti. So when someone removes those sources for a while, the first feeling is not peace. It is withdrawal from a world that was fake, but very convenient. And this is where the trap gets embarrassingly efficient. The more the brain gets guaranteed reward without effort, the more normal effort starts looking like a scam. Reading 2 pages feels rude. Cleaning one corner of the room feels dramatic. Sending one email feels like dragging a piano through wet cement. Meanwhile, the internal simulation keeps offering zero friction emotional delivery. No rejection. No boredom. No clumsy first step. No tiny humiliating beginning where you are bad at something before you are decent at it. External reality has weather. It has delays, weird moods, other people, unclear outcomes, and the occasional soul-crushing login code. The dopamine cave has none of that nonsense. So the brain compares the two and quietly says, why would we go outside? That is not laziness in the cartoon sense. That is operant conditioning wearing sweatpants. Reward the escape often enough, and the escape starts looking like home. And this pattern hits harder when your baseline sensitivity is already turned up. Some people are built like thick walls. Life knocks and they hear a polite tap. Other people are built like open windows in a storm. A comment lands. A tone shifts. A room feels off. A task has too many invisible steps. A silence gets too loud. For them, hyperstimulation is not just entertainment. It is containment. It creates absorption. One clean tunnel. One little river for the nervous system to pour itself into, instead of flooding the whole house. That is why the same app can be just a distraction for one person and an emotional bunker for another. Same screen, different nervous system. Then comes the part nobody wants to admit because it makes everyone look slightly ridiculous. The more time passes in the outside world, the more frozen the inner world starts to feel. Your real room gets messier. Your real inbox gets heavier. Your real body gets tired. But the internal movie stays glossy. It does not age. It does not ask for rent. It does not make you fold laundry like some medieval punishment ritual. So now there is dissonance. The gap gets loud. And because that gap feels bad, the brain reaches for the same simulation that created the gap in the first place. That is the loop. Discomfort triggers escape. Escape delays action. Delayed action increases discomfort. Then the brain says, wow, we are uncomfortable, better escape. Amazing, stupid, very human. But here's the part that deserves some actual respect. That inner world did not appear for no reason. At some point, it probably helped. When life felt too loud, too flat, too disappointing, too demanding, too socially expensive, or just aggressively underwhelming, the mind built a private room. A room where reward could be generated, without begging the outside world to cooperate. That was adaptation. Not weakness. Not moral failure. Not some dramatic evidence that you are undisciplined forever. The problem is that a survival tool can overstay its welcome. What once protected the system becomes the system's default address. The shield becomes the house. And eventually, the very thing that kept you stable starts charging rent and attention, discipline, patience, and actual life contact. So dopamine recalibration is not some monk cosplay where you throw your phone into the ocean and start pretending oatmeal is thrilling. Please. The point is not to become a beige statue with perfect habits and no browser history. The point is integration. The reward system has to remember that reality is allowed to be quiet without being empty. That effort can feel dull at the beginning without being dangerous. That delayed gratification is not a punishment. It is just reward arriving with a receipt instead of confetti. When high stimulation sources get reduced, the first phase is usually ugly. Not cinematic ugly, regular ugly. You check the app without opening it. You unlock your phone and forget why. You walk into a room and feel personally attacked by the lack of entertainment. You start negotiating with yourself like a tiny corrupt politician. Maybe one video, maybe 5 minutes. Maybe I deserve this because I suffered through a mildly annoying email. This is the nervous system looking for its old exit door. And for a while, normal activities feel offensively bland. Walking, reading, cooking, cleaning, working, sitting without immediately injecting noise into your skull. These things do not sparkle at first. They are not supposed to. They are baseline activities. They are the ground. And when the brain has been living on fireworks, the ground feels insulting. But repeated contact with low stimulation reality starts changing the volume. The system stops expecting every moment to arrive with a drum roll. Small rewards begin to regain resonance. Finishing one boring task. Keeping one promise. Making the room slightly less feral. Putting the phone somewhere, inconvenient enough that your lazy little dopamine gremlin has to walk to get it. That matters. Environment design works because discipline is not just a personality trait. It is often architecture. A person with snacks on the desk, apps on the home screen, autoplay running, and zero friction around every impulse is not free. They are living inside a casino that calls itself a lifestyle. Move the rewards source. Add delay. Remove the obvious trigger. Make the cheat path slightly more annoying. Suddenly, the nervous system has space to choose the slower reward without needing to become a motivational poster with shoes. And replacement matters too. Because the brain does not tolerate empty rooms for long. Take away hyperstimulation and give it nothing, and it will start licking the walls. There has to be a lower noise substitute. Movement, sunlight, a real meal, a slow project, a conversation that does not happen through a slot machine, something with texture, something that requires a little patience before it pays you back. That is where delayed reward starts becoming believable again. Not inspirational. Believable. The system gathers evidence. I waited and nothing exploded. I stayed bored and boredom moved. I did the first 5 minutes and the task stopped, looking like a haunted mansion. That is discipline formation at the nervous system level. Not screaming at yourself. Not becoming a productivity goblin. Just repeated exposure to effort that ends in earned reward. And over time, the default mode room becomes less of a hiding place and more of a workshop. The mind can still imagine, still plan, still wander, still build beautiful internal worlds. But now those worlds have a door back into actual life. That is the difference between maladaptive absorption and integration. One replaces reality, the other rehearses for it. And if this hit too close, good. That little sting is data. Save this for the next time your brain tries to convince you that one tiny dopamine snack will definitely not become a 3-hour parade of nonsense. Because the next video is going to hit the real root. Why your brain hates boredom so much, and why silence feels like a threat when your reward system has been raised by noise.